I held a VGC tournament, but with only Pokemon from Generation 2 allowed. This is a National Dex double elimination tournament, meaning Pokemon can use any moves they've learned throughout every game, and it also means that Mega Pokemon and Terrestrialization are allowed, but Z moves and Dynamax are not. While only Generation 2 Pokemon allowed, one exception are Paradox Pokemon. Any Paradox Pokemon related to a Generation 2 Pokemon are allowed, meaning stuff like Gouching Fire, Arm Bundle, and Fluttermane are all allowed. Now on my server, there's also an additional twist. We have custom Pokemon anywhere from custom Megas, Evolutions, Paradox Pokemon, Regionals, and more. This ends up changing the format and meta quite a lot, creating a chaotic atmosphere. The tournament is a 1 restricted regulation, so let's take a little dive at the restricteds. Generation 2 introduced less Pokemon to Generation 1 and also included a lot of uninvolved Pokemon that got evolutions in later generations, making most of them pretty useless in the tournament. However, this doesn't mean there's a lack of VGC viable Pokemon. Generation 1 mainly had Mewtwo as its only vanilla restricted. However, Generation 2 has both Lugia and Ho-Oh. Lugia and Ho-Oh are decent mons on their own, especially with other much scarier restricteds not being in this format. Lugia is quite bulky and can utilize Terra to possibly set up on opponents with the right setup. Ho-Oh has really good special bulk, Sacred Fire for burning opponents, and the Regenerator ability, so switching out can heal it, and with Terra, it can remove its weakness to rock types. Our server Hell introduces 3 new Paradox Pokemon that are restricted. Meet the Iron Oblivions, designed by Walter Arts. Iron Oblivion Type 1 is a future Suicune with high speed offenses and last respects Wave Crash and Hydro Steam for crazy good offenses and synergy with Sun teams. Iron Oblivion Type 2 has good bulk, speed, and some powerful moves to be either really annoying or just threatening in general. Iron Oblivion Type 3 is really bulky, with also a really high special attacking stat to abuse Thunderclap on other offensive opponents. While these Pokemon are super powerful, they are honestly overshadowed by the Prime Pokemon. Prime Pokemon are incredibly buff vanilla Pokemon on our server that increases the Pokemon stats by 120, 20 in each stat, and gives them a new ability and 4 useful moves as well. All the Prime Pokemon allowed in this tournament are Meganium Prime, a super bulky Pokemon with thick fat, the moves Sappy Seed, Stone Axe, Dragon Dance, and Spore. Typhlosion Prime, fast and powerful, and comes with the Broken Drought ability that sets up the sun and boosts the damage of Eruption. And to go with it are Burning Bulwark, Earth Power, Fury Dance, and Electro Drift. For Alligator Prime, a high offensive Pokemon that gains Strong Jaw and Thunder Fang, Drain Punch, Surging Strikes, and Triple Arrows. Sudowoodo Prime. While Sudowoodo may be horrible, Sudowoodo Prime makes it a viable Pokemon, and with the Grass immunity, decent bulk, along with Accelerock, Swords Dance, Strength Sap, and Sappy Seed, this can be actually quite powerful in VGC when paired up with Tyranitar. Delibird Prime now comes with huge power, Bone Meringue, Floaty Fall, Victory Dance, and Glacial Lance, making a great glass cannon in VGC. However, what stands above the rest by far is no doubt Iron Thorinx Prime, sitting at 690 base stats with insane bulk that you see on a Stall Pokemon, but with 154 base attack, so you can't even play Stall with it anyways. And to boost his bulk even more, it comes with super broken additionals like Sandstream to set up the sand, and Diamond Storm, Shore Up, Shift Gear, and Plasma Fist, with Diamond Storm hitting both opponents and Shore Up healing 75% in the sand, and also sand boosting up special defense, and this thing having the power to Terra, this thing becomes quite literally the best thing in the meta. While there are some demons in the restricted categories, the unrestricteds are filled with their own menaces as of their own, As compared to Generation 1, this generation has far better supporters in my opinion. Fantastic Friends, the Slowbro Slow King Paradox fusion has returned better than ever with its incredible Trick Room, Follow Me, Instruct support. This generation does also have some 2 crazy weather setters, Politoed and Tyranitar, which are staples in VGC. Tyranitar would probably be more extremely common if Iron Thorinx Prime, a way better sand setter, didn't exist. Murkrow is a crazy useful support with Prankster, Tailwind, Taunt, and Thunder Wave. Mega Blossom is a new Mega Evolution introduced on the server with much more bulk and added Fairy typing and ability Friend Guard, making it an incredible support Pokemon, as it also has Helping Hand and Pollen Puff. Smeargle doesn't need to be said, it's still good. And then there's just your good Pokemon like the Paradox, Doggos, Cats, and whatnot. However, while everyone doubted me and looked down on me for this, I stood my ground when I said Hitmontop is still ridiculously good in this format. It's got Intimidate, forcing Iron Thorinx Prime to run the clear amulet if it doesn't want to get cucked, since it also struggles to deal damage to Hitmontop in the first place. It also just runs the useful Fake Out, coaching support, and Wide Guard, which not only helps deal with Diamond Storm, Iron Throwing Primes, but also Dazzling Gleams from the funny Fluttermane floating around, which by the way, yeah, Fluttermane is here to terrorize the game. However, probably not that well, with Iron Throwing Primes right behind it. But that's just a couple decent Pokemon out there. Let's go look at some simple teams. Right, so obviously, the first thing I had to go over is probably the most meta team, an Iron Throwing Prime team. There's quite, obviously there can be little variations, but honestly, I feel like this is, yeah, by far the best team possible. Maybe a little adjustments can maybe make it a bit better, but and then kind of more casual, slightly not as competitive, sweaty tournament. This kind of works as kind of like the best team. So yeah, Iron Throwing Prime, this is our main restricted Terra Grass, and this reason I went Terra Grass was because I was worried about Meganium Prime, right? Meganium Prime is incredibly bulky, and I felt like there was a possible chance it could actually outstall Iron Throwing Prime, and that all of my support I have here wouldn't even be enough to break it. So I went Terra Grass mainly because to avoid Sleep Powders, Spore from Meganium Prime, and what's it? The Sappy Seed, because Sappy Seed is a move that sets up Leech Seed on you. So if you're Terra Grass, or if you're Grass type, that won't happen. I was also worried about Sudowoodo Prime for this matter as well, because Sudowoodo Prime, you could even get away if you're facing an Iron Throwing Prime team to not bring your Sandset or Tyranitar, just because the Iron Throwing Prime is going to do it for you, so you can maybe bring some better support with you. And you can even probably just stall things out with Sappy Seed. That's why this has Terra Grass. So that's literally impossible now, making this even stronger. But obviously, there's some little caveats for this, right? So Terra Grass is interesting in that if you go up against Typhlosion Prime teams, it is still possible to technically lose. Typhlosion Prime has Earth Power, right? Earth Power is 4 times super effective on Iron Thorns. But if you Terra Grass, now you're weak to Eruptions, right? And that's really bad. And normally you also kind of want to keep the Rock typing to boost your special defense. So, but for the most part, you were kind of saving your Terra for this guy anyways, because Rock Electric, not the best defensive typing anyways. There's just too many weaknesses on it. Too many risks. Going Terra Grass and just making you a Mono Grass type. Relatively safe, other than the options you're going against Typhlosion Prime. But that is still incredibly one-sided matchup in a way. Iron Throwing Prime still has a huge advantage. I mean, you're setting up Sand that does chip damage that reduces damage of Eruption. You have stuff like Hitmontop for Fake Out, for Wide Guard. There's just so much support that can even just help you against that. It's not too big of a problem, but it is a kind of slight issue. But yeah, Body Press, Diamond Storm, kind of really mainly all you need here. Plasma Fist, while it's useful for maybe like some maybe some water types like for Alligator Prime or stuff, and maybe you want to take out in one go, or possibly some normal types that you know you outspeed, want to maybe stop like a Fake Out, or no, not Fake Out, like a Body Slam or something. Plasma Fist could be reasonably useful, but still I think it's not super useful as a move other than just being a good stab move. So I think if there was any variation, you could maybe replace Plasma Fist with like Shift Gear, but not too important, not crazy. Fantastic Friends is your main support. Run Mental Herb for Murkrow. Why this is Terra Dark, you do want to save Terra for Iron Throwing Prime for the most part, so having a Mental Herb to just get you out is helpful in the sense. I also ran Toxic on this because I knew that Iron Throwing Prime would be the meta team, and the best way to get it to beat the mirror matchup safely is to use Toxic. And I say this for mirror matchups because it is possible with bad RNG you just lose it, because right, Diamond Storm doesn't guarantee to raise your defenses, so if your opponents keep getting defense boosts and you don't, then you could just lose the mirror matchup just like that. But with Fantastic Friends with Toxic here, you have a slight way of getting past that. Hitmontop, obviously, this is the main support. Main support. This is kind of like the best thing to go with Iron Throwing Prime. Any other mirror matchup, Iron Throwing Prime, if they don't run Clear Amulet, this thing just kind of stomps on them. Close combat is good for damage, so you're not completely passive without moves. So if you get, maybe taunted or something, you have something that can do damage. Terra Ghost, in case you don't want to get faked up. And then you can use Coaching on Iron Throwing Prime to support it. You're literally boosting its attack and defense, because if you don't run Shift Gear, Iron Throwing Prime has no way to raise its attack. But yeah, Wide Guard for stuff like Dazzling Gleam, eruptions, diamond storms from mirror matchups, of course. So yeah, him on top here is just kind of like the glue that sticks together this team. Iron Orange Prime is incredibly huge as a monster, but you also want to run good support. And it just works as your only offense, or your main offense, right? So that's why you're running a lot of support here. So this is another support here. This one actually has no attacks on it. For the most part, it probably won't be used for too much unless you really need speed control in a way. Yeah, so this team doesn't really have Tailwind or Icy Wind, that type of speed control. Instead, you just want this Nature Spore to go as fast as possible. 124 base speed is pretty fast. So use Boost Energy to get yourself as fast as possible. Set up screen supports to make it easier. So if you think you're going to have bad RNG with Diamond Storms, you can set up screens with this. And then start just getting more chances to Diamond Storm. You got Sleep Powder just to put stuff to sleep in case you really need it. And then Encore to ruin enemy supports and stuff, right? It could be quite useful. Walking Wake is actually kind of crucial to this team because of Iron Defense supports, or Iron Defense like Sub Sweepers. And there's stuff like Celebi Hell, which is a kind of regional form of Celebi that's Steel Fairy. Can set up Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Stored Power. Because somebody has run that. Walking Wake is the key member to defeating teams like that, right? Just with Life Orb, Flamethrower, Hydro Steam, and if anybody also runs Typhlosion Prime teams, this thing also can help counter it. In case you're worried about having to make a 50-50 choice with Iron Thorns Prime. So this thing also has low kick for stuff like Tyranitar. Deal good damage with that, other than because without it kind of just gets wild. Low kick I actually don't think does that much damage on Thorns Prime, despite it doing max damage, just because the thing is so bulky. And then this thing is obviously an incredible support. It's max speed. With Chlorophyll, it's still probably pretty slow because 50 base speed doesn't really help you that much, but it's there as an option. Obviously, so this has Pollen Puff, Strength Sap. Strength Sap is mainly just for recovery, so you can stay on the field as longer as possible. You know, as long as possible, you get different guard support up. And then Sleep Powder to just put stuff to sleep, Dazzling Gleam just so damage, and Pollen Puff for damage and also for healing. This can also run stuff like Encore, maybe like over Dazzling Gleam or something. Just because you can punish, I guess, just any passivity, right? So yeah, this is kind of like the meta team. And honestly, this is probably the best team ever. This kind of deals with every single other restricted in this format. Of course, not complete for free for all of them. You have to play around some stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to navigate or pilot and stuff. And the other team, I have some more teams I've prepared, but I think this is probably the only other decent one. It still kind of loses to Iron Orange Prime, but is like still like the second best thing or maybe something. So this team doesn't have Flutter Mane. You could definitely fit it in. You can replace maybe something like Smeargle or whatever with Flutter Mane. It's just good special fast offense thing. I just didn't put on this just because I didn't feel like it. This is hardly any use anyway. This is just theory crafting. But yeah, Typhlosion Prime, it's just kind of cookie cutter set. You literally just, there's not really too many differences you want this. Maybe you can replace Electro Drift with Flamethrower so that you don't get ruined by, what's it called? Wide Guard. But by not running Electro Drift, you don't hit for Alligator Prime teams. So that becomes kind of a issue, kind of. You could also run Solar Beam instead of Electro Drift, but still, this thing I'm just running Charcoal because you really just want to spam Eruption on this, right? So the more Eruptions you can get to spam on this, the better. It's Terrified, just so you can just keep doing more damage. So Great Tusk here is, it's because it's your physical attacker, right? So you got Clear Amulet, so you don't get ruined by him on tops. And this is kind of like your Copium last-ditch effort to maybe deal with Iron Orange Primes. At least you force a Terra on them. That's the main thing, actually. Is that, while yes, Typhlosion Prime can just Earth Power to, I guess, threaten the Terra, Typhlosion Prime, you really want to be spamming Eruption, like, no matter what. Like, Eruption, Burning Bulwark, those are the two moves you've really wanted to click on this, so if there's anything that can help you not need to click the others, that's this thing, right? So, Headlong Rush, Close Combat, Ice Spinner, H is there to just make Iron Orange Prime more threatened. Of course, it's really not enough damage, but it's something, right? And then with Photosynthesis with the sun up, you can technically get more attack boost with that. but of course it's not that big of a deal. It's just something for decent support. It's just there, right? Hitmontop here, obviously, still good. Like, even though coaching doesn't really help Typhlosion Prime too much, it does boost his defense. Using it just for more support against Iron Thorns in general. Just Fake Out is just way too good with Intimidate. And also you can use it to support Great Tusk if in the off chance, like, yeah, Typhlosion Prime is getting walled by something on the other team, just a bad matchup, you can just focus on Great Tusk as your main offense here. Smeargle, it's a weird Pokemon because, well, I guess it's not that weird on this team. I kind of couldn't fit on the sand teams just because, right, it breaks the sash. You'd have to force a Terra if you don't want the sash to be immediately broken. But yeah, you got Moody, Spore, Protect, Decorate, Baton Pass. You're just another stupid Smeargle set. Nature Spore, yeah, we saw this before, and I still think it's useful even on this team. Like, right, maybe you want to run a Photosynthesis support, but I thought this might be better because, like, assuming you can't get the sun up, or you don't want to get the sun up, right? You don't want to bring it out too early, you can just use this for boost energy, right? You can Sunny Day to set up the sun in case the sun is removed, which I think is probably really useful, especially for stuff like Mega Tyranitar, because it's right, yeah, I guess not too much, but it is an option for getting rid of that. You got a fast Sunny Day, so you can get that Eruption up in case other weathers come up. You get Sleep Powder, so you know, fast Sleep Powders. Pollen Puff for more recovery. This could be Pollen Puff is quite useful just because you want to keep Typhlosion healthy, so does more damage. And Tailwind, speed control. I think Fantastic Friends just for, you know, your cookie cutter. Follow Me, Instruct support. Then you get Instruct under Eruption, you can do quite a lot of damage, and Toxic, you can use this to ruin Iron Thorns Prime. Regardless, this team kind of still a bit ass. Like, Typhlosion Prime just gets walled by a lot of stuff, and you have to pilot the team really well for this to even work. It's just a more interesting option, maybe. There are definitely other supports you can probably do better with this. Stuff like Spike Claw, which is a future Jump Bluff, or not future, past Jump Bluff Paradox form that has Dark Claw Fake Out. There are just a couple other Pokemon you can probably put on this. It does get ruined by stuff like Raging Bolt, the Raging Bolt variants with Thunderclaps. It also loses to Azumarill with Aqua Jet. And what's it? It also kind of just loses to Murkrow too. Unless you can somehow deal with it beforehand. The Tailwinds, the Thunder Waves are quite annoying. So yeah. But otherwise, yeah, these are two kind of main teams I wanted to show off. But now let's get to actually some games. So unfortunately, a very tragic accident happened, and we do not have any replays. Like, all of our replays basically got wiped, which means all the replays for this tournament were kind of wiped. And so one of the alternatives I wanted to do was maybe try and recreate some of the fights, have people just replay and then just use this for footage, but it's kind of a pain. We have another tournament coming up. We have Gen 3 coming up, so I think it might be better just make this maybe a shorter video and just discuss some of the matchups that went on, and then obviously explain the results and how I kind of like my general thoughts on the fights themselves. So let's do it. First match here that I wanted to go over is between Gerwini and MasterofHaze. So Gerwini ran an Iron Thorns Prime team, obviously the very meta team, and I think this is a decent, interesting alteration from the one I actually had for sample team. So this one uses Celebi, Helmurkra, and Raging Bolt, because Hitmontop, Mecha Blossom are like probably top 2 supports for Iron Thorns Prime here, just because of the friend card and Fake Out coaching support there. But Celebi Hell here actually creates another interesting thing. So this is actually what I consider probably one of the best answers for Iron Thorns Prime here, like mirror matchups, due to just Iron Thorns Prime, the main moves it runs, you know, Diamond Storm, Body Press, Plasma Fist, have a really hard time going through Celebi. I think, because if you want to do any decent damage, you'd have to get some defense increases with Diamond Storm and then Body Press. And with Gerwini's set for Celebi Hell, actually, it can kind of just negate any of that RNG, since with Iron Defense Calm Mind, you know, you get that you can increase your defenses before the opponent's Iron Torrents Prime can get those defenses up. And obviously, since Hitmontop always goes with Iron Torrents Prime, you got Celebi Hell here with Draining Kiss and Stored Power that really just threaten it a lot. You got Murkrow here that kind of makes it really hard for Typhlosion Prime or just any fast teams to do anything, and Raging Bull also technically too for any just any fast Pokemon. So I think honestly this was a really good differentiation from an interesting take of the Iron Torrents Prime team. We got MasterofHaze here, who's actually the only one who ran an Iron Oblivion team at all. The majority of the other people just either ran one of the primes or just something different. So it's kind of interesting to see someone use it. MasterofHaze chose to go with the Iron Oblivion Type 2, the one based off Entei. It's pretty interesting seeing the Flare Blitz over Sacred Fire, but honestly, I kind of understand it. In some senses, it might be a little bit better, just because Sacred Fire does have a pretty high chance to miss, while Flare Blitz is more consistent, and I think it does also higher damage too. And with Quark Drive here, well, I don't remember exactly what they were boosting. I think they were boosting attack, but I think probably it might be a little bit better to actually boost speed yourself. Maybe not in this meta actually though, just because of Iron Torrents Prime. Looking at this matchup here, obviously I think it's a really horrible matchup for MasterofHaze, just because without Sacred Fire, you have no good way of burning Iron Torrents Prime here. Burning Bulwark doesn't really matter when Iron Torrents Prime can just spam Diamond Storm. What I do think is kind of interesting here is the Azumarill and Fantastic Friends, right? And also Cross Blue. Cross Blue is just an evolution of Heracross. It has decent offenses. And I think, based on this Iron Torrents Prime, I think it's actually good enough to threaten a Terra on it. Just because once you bring out the Crossblade, I guess, like, close combat threatens the Terra to Grass, but then once you Terra to Grass, there's also Lunge there, and also Facade. So, with the Terra normal as well, it does some crazy damage there. But what I think, like, in terms of this matchup, I think one of the most important things here is the Azumarill Fantastic Friends combo. Azumarill here with, like, Belly Drum, Aqua Jet, it threatens the Iron Torrents Prime to Terra, and then it has a player that does decent damage, and this Iron Torrents Prime set doesn't have a Plasma Fist, so actually Azumarill is quite safe from it. And then for Celebi Hell as well, right? Because Celebi Hell needs to set up in order to start getting damage off. So Azumarill with just one Belly Drum, you can just get that to that max attack, and you know, with those Aqua Jets, you're either forcing a Water Terra, and once it tears into water, you can play rough. So I feel like pairing that up with Iron Oblivion creates some really good pressure, and with Fantastic Friends with Follow Me, you can also kind of just avoid some of the annoying like single target attacks, especially like Raging Bolt. Actually, that's kind of like the main thing is that Raging Bolt can't touch Azumarill as long as Fantastic Friends is there with Follow Me. So I think one of the main, still, I think this is a very one-sided matchup for Gerwini, but I don't think it's like an impossible matchup for MasterofHaze. I think it's just, you gotta work around probably your main, like your main win con for this matchup is probably Azumarill. But also at the same time, it's not like your restricted is completely useless. It's like you gotta use the restricted to kind of threaten those Terras out there. Because once you threaten the Terra or like get the Terra off, it might be able to stand out in some ways. Like if you force the Grass Terra on Iron Thorns, then Flare Blade starts threatening the Iron Thorns if it can't get its defense boosts up. But also you got Cross Blue that's like lowering its attacks with Lunge and stuff. But overall, I think this is kind of interesting teams out here. Celebi Hell here on MasterofHaze size being a Calm Mind Life Orb set is also kind of interesting. Just because I think it actually hits everything pretty well. So there is definitely a lot of ways. I think probably Mega Raikou is probably the most useless thing here. You got Celebi Hell with Motor Drive. Everything else also just walls it pretty well. But as for how this match ended, Gerwini did end up winning 2-0, which kind of makes sense just because of how broken Iron Torrents Prime is. So let's move on to the next match. I think actually, funny enough, before I continue with more games, one thing I wanted to talk about more is the Pokemon usage. Actually, since there's around 12 teams, I wrote down all the stats for how many Pokemon were on like each teams and stuff. And there's some quite interesting stats here. Basically, 8.33% is like only on one team. 16% obviously is on 2 teams, and then more or less so. You're right. So obviously, or not even obviously, this is actually more surprising to me, is that Fluttermane was the most popular Pokemon on this VGC team. It's like not too surprising. I would have assumed that during prime this would have been like number 1 just for how good it is, but I guess some people didn't want to be boring, which makes sense. Fluttermane is just good on every single team. Like even if you're not running a Sun team, it's still good on every team. The thing has just super broken stats. You can literally just run boost energy if you're not running Sun and stuff. So that being 50% is kind of crazy to see. Granted, we only had like 12 teams, but still, I think Fluttermane is the most popular. Blossom without context is also kind of funny as hell to see. Seeing like, whoa, who the hell is using Blossom? Why are so many people using it? But Mega Blossom is just such a really good support. Fantastic Friends was the GOAT in the Gen 1 tour, and still the GOAT in Gen 2. Came on top after, after me, the GOAT, brought it into light. People realize that it's such a really good support with Fake Out, Intimidate, and also with coaching. It's like a mini Incineroar, right? It's like a way worse version of Incineroar, but since there's no Incineroar, this is like the best thing you're gonna get. Raging Bull, has been always good since it was introduced in Gen 9. Some of these top stuff is pretty surprising to me. Mainly just aren't during Prime. Spike Claw is an interesting one I was more surprised about. But I guess when there's not that many options, it's really not too crazy. Spike Claw is a future version, or not future, past version of Jumpluff. And it's got like Dire Claw Fake Out, so it has an interesting niches itself. Walking Wake is also pretty cool. And I felt that, it was kind of pretty useful on some teams. But yeah, these are just kind of the usage, and let's go into the next match. Alright, so the next match I wanted to go over here is between Gobra and Dark. So, this is a funny matchup. They both have really unique teams. So Gobra here is running Perish Trap, which honestly, kudos to them. Apparently every single tournament somebody's got to run a Perish Trap team. I don't even think that's going to be possible in the Gen 3 one. I hope no one even tries. The Gobra here is one of the few people that ran a Typhlosion Prime team. Because obviously it's broken as hell, but this one's not running any type of protection. In fact, it's running Flying actually, with the choice specs. In my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan just because stuff like, Smeargle, Hitmontop are out here with Fake Out, and he got the Raging Bolts variants with Thunderclap, so he kind of just easily deals with Typhlosion Prime in a way. Especially if you don't have any protection. And I don't really think Terra Flying is really going to be that useful to you as well. Most of the time, you're just going to be clicking Choice Specs, Eruption anyways, right? Jump up here with Chlorophyll, Sunny Day, or Tailwind is pretty interesting though. Still, even though this can set... Well, actually, no. Manual setup, it's probably fine, just because I was thinking about Tyranitar, right? Tyranitar is always going to have priority in setting up the sand, that's why you need manual stuff. So like, even if manual, the only way Dark can have priority setting up this, or having the sand up, is clicking Protect or making a prediction on when Jumpluff is going to click Sunny Day, or just pivoting in and out. But that's where stuff like, Mega Noctowl comes in. Mega Noctowl, I assume it was honestly going to be kind of bad. This thing has Shadow Tag, but it is in Noctowl. So even Noctowl with 100 boosted stats isn't really that bulky of a Pokemon. But their running is pretty interesting substitute. So by Mega Evolving, you're avoiding Fake Out because Ghost Flying type. And then if you can catch a Fake Out off guard and set up the substitute, now you get some extra turns with being alive with Shadow Tag, right? With the Protect substitute. And the Fluttermane is the Perish Song setter here with Boost Energy, so it's faster, so it's able to get that off. What's also kind of interesting is Noctowl is running Skill Swap here. So you can just, if you think that Noctowl maybe is going to faint, you just Skill Swap to Shadow Attack into someone else to make sure the opponents are probably still trapped. The Dark is running Sudowoodo Prime team, which honestly I love it. I did make a simple team with this, but I didn't think it was as good as some of the others. So Sudowoodo Prime, right? Rock type. Got the more stats. It's not the best thing ever since it is Sudowoodo, but with paired up with Tyranitar and especially Mega Tyranitar against these weather teams, now you have an extra special defense boost. And this one is also running Assault Vest, which, yeah, I would say is probably one of the better sets for Sudowoodo Prime. I would say maybe over like Ice Punch or High Horsepower, I would have gone Body Press just because of like for the mirror matchup, Tyranitar matchups, and maybe against Iron Thorns Prime. But I guess Iron Thorns Prime you'd want to run High Horsepower or Ice Punch for the Terra Grass and just for itself. So I don't know what the best set would be for it. Tyranitar is running a D-Dance set. The Flutter Mane is more of an offensive set here. And then you got Trick Room on the Fantastic Friends. I will say though, and I was honestly quite surprised here. I felt like Dark probably had the much bigger match advantage here, just because Sand is so much better, or Sand is just a pretty good counter to the Sun teams. However, I will say one of the biggest factors in making this not a complete advantage is the Great Tusk with the Choice Scarf here, because Sudowoodo Prime and Tyranitar are obviously the big bosses of this. And with Great Tusk here, with threatening with Headlong Rush or Close Combat, also with the speed boost, it makes it really hard to deal with it, right? The Tyranitar is not going to do any damage at all with those Dragon Dances boosted stuff, especially, and probably needs to get like two or three of them in order to even outspeed the Scarf Great Tusk. Sudowoodo Prime can do decent damage to it. You really got to make the prediction on whether you want to burn your Terra to be able to take attack, and then turn yourself into a water type. Where Typhlosion Prime can just Solar Beam you. And also one of the more important things here is, I feel like what I remember correctly is that, right, Smeargle, Hitmontop, and Fantastic Friend are just super passive. So half the team here are just completely passive to Ghost types. So Gobra was actually able to take advantage of that and use Mega Knockout Flutter Mane to actually set up Perish Trap. He's got to catch Dark off guard when he's trying to set up like a good board state for his sweepers to go in. That's when Gobra was able to just take advantage and Perish Trap them. And because I know Dark wants to forget about this, I gotta remind him. One of the matches, his Hitmontop and I think Smeargle got Perish Trapped. And they both ended up fainting, which obviously is really bad when in VGC, when you only have 4 slots, so if half your team is dead, one Perish Song, you're basically guaranteed to win. So Hitmontop ended up falling to the Perish Song, but he also had Terror on that, so if he Terror Ghosted, he would have been able to switch out, because Ghost types can't be trapped. This is kind of funny, I just wanted him to remember about it, so anyways. Yeah, this match actually was quite surprising. So Gobra, the Typhlosion Prime team, actually ended up winning this match 2-1. So let's move on to the next match. Alright, so the next match I kind of want to go over here is actually between King Switch and Rowlet. So King Switch, my goat, he ran for Alligator Prime team, which obviously is not a very meta team in this format. But I actually think it's a really good team. Well, could have been a really good team. So right now, obviously, you're looking at this. You see for Alligator Prime, you see Gudgeon Fire, Mega Blossom, Slippery Hell, Murkrow, and Iron Mirage. I'd say possibly you could replace Gouging Fire or Iron Mirage with what's his face called? Polytoad. Yeah. I feel like this team would have been like 3 times better if Polytoad was on the team, right? Because Polytoad, obviously, there's not that many good rain abusers that would make it worth it to run the rain team over something like Typhlosion Prime. And it's like Flutter Mane, Jump Fluff, Walking Away combos, or like the Sand team with Iron Thorns Prime, obviously the main meta one in Mega Tyranitar. But Polytoad can be reasonably slow, and also just because, which for Alligator Prime against, in this case against Rowlet's Sun team, if you don't have a Weather Setter to get rid of the Sun, now your Alligator Prime is doing significantly less damage. And suddenly the fire versus water type matchup actually has an advantage here. Yeah, so if we look at Rowlet's team, we got the Typhlosion Prime here with Choice Scarf, which is interesting adaptation. Just going straight complete offense right after the beginning. With Choice Specs Fluttermane with Trick Room is a very interesting thing. You got Salt Fist, Raging Bolt with Electro Web and a bunch of electric moves. You got Walk and Wake, just the offensive set with Hydro Steam, Flamethrower, Draco. Chlorophyll Jump Off, yeah, okay, makes sense. And then an interesting Sneasel Hisuian. Since Sneasel is not in this game, but Sneasel Hisuian does not have Unburdening, neither does it have Dark Claw, but still, it hits pretty hard. So I kind of understand why it's here. I guess the fact that it has Fake Out is also an interesting reason to bring it for. But yeah, looking at this matchup here, obviously Typhlosion Prime doesn't really have many good ways of hitting Ralligator, but you have Raging Bolt there, and you have Fluttermane that just does good damage in general. And as long as you set up the Sun with Typhlosion Prime, this Ralligator Prime has really big trouble kind of breaking through. Gouging Fire, while can decently tank moves for a certain set, the problem is, right, Fluttermane, Raging Bolt, Walk and Wake both have very... I guess, like, Fairy's not super effective, but still, Fluttermane's gonna do some really solid damage on Gouging Fire. And obviously, you gotta avoid those Dracos. Of course, you could Terra Grass, but then Typhlosion Prime suddenly is super effective against you instead of being 4 times resisted. So it's a lot of... it's a really difficult thing to play around. I feel like if King Switch had that Politoed, right? Typhlosion Prime comes out to do an eruption or something. You just switch in Politoed and suddenly that rain is up. For Alligator Prime is guaranteed one-shotting everything. So you just play it with so having like for Alligator Prime Murkrow, like Politoed for Alligator Prime Murkrow, and then maybe like Mega Blossom here, I think makes it kind of like an unstoppable combo. Right, you set up the rain for Alligator Prime is dealing a billion damage. You got Mega Blossom that's also now boosting its defenses and everything. It would have been really hard for Rowlet to play around. But actually, for the most part, actually, if you look at this, Nala's analyze it a bit more. It just when you look at King Switch's team, you realize that Alligator Prime is his main damage, right? Of course, Iron Mirage can do some decent damage. It's a future Paradox form of Raikou. It's still not, I feel like, the most ardent theme. Kind of gets well too easily. So I feel like most of the offense actually really relies on for Alligator Prime here. So once you deal with that, sure, that thing can just probably one-shot everything. But like, for the most part here, it deals so much damage. But as long as you have something that's always doing damage to it, it's eventually going to fall. Once it falls, King Switch's like firepower just completely drastically drops. While Rowlet here, yeah, you can take out Typhlosion Prime and he still has really good offenses, right? Everything hits pretty hard except for the jump up, but that doesn't really matter itself, right? So I think the result of this match was Rowlet. Yeah, Rowlet ended up winning 2-1. So crazy stuff. Anyways, next match. Okay, the next one I wanted to talk about is in the losers bracket, and something I want to talk about this match really quickly just because it just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't have the replays to remind myself how the hell this happened. Let's look at the match between Dark versus Gekko, the matchup, right? So, Dark, obviously we've seen the Sand team, but look at Gekko's team. It's a very troll team here. So Mega Umbreon, its ability gives it priority on Psychic type moves on the first turn, or not on the first turn when it's max health. So, in this case, Stored Power Skill Swap it are the only two, so it doesn't even, its Stored Power can't even be boosted because it doesn't have any like setup moves, not boosting moves, right? So I don't understand what he was doing. He was kind of just trolling, I guess. Nature Spore here, Rage Powder, okay, never mind, it has Pollen Puff, so it's hardly any damage. You got the typical Smeargle set, that one's not too strange. Lugia here, me when I use my restricted for a screen setter is kind of crazy. Like, this thing only has Psychic for damage. If you have a Dark type, you practically win this, right? Sure, Pollen Puff, but still. Your entire Lugia, and they're also all default Terras as well, so. And then Hitmontop here is the basic set, nothing crazy about that. Everybody's using the same Hitmontop set. for the most part, and then you got Espeon here with ring target with trick. So I guess the whole concept of this is you're supposed to trick the ring target onto a dark type so you can use psychic or so you can use expanding force on it. But you it has to set up psychic terrain itself and then get a chance to use expanding force, and then it still has a fairy type move for dark types. And you look at dark teams like, well, how the hell do you break Mega Tyranitar, right? Sure, you have Pollen Puff, sure you have Learning Points, but like that's not nearly enough to deal with Mega Tyranitar's insane bulk, right? There's no way Espeon or Nature Sport defensive support, like fast support Pokemon is able to break it. And you even have Fluttermane here that's offensive and stuff. And Sudowoodo Prime that does good damage. You can even also set up Sappy Seed on the bulky Pokemon here. And somehow, I don't know how, Gekko won. I just don't understand. And I really wish we had replay so I can see how the hell that happened. I don't even need to say how Dark has an advantage here. You can kind of just tell by looking at it, but like, yeah, let's move on to the next match. Alright, the last kind of like matchup I really want to analyze here is just between NottaDoc and Shawdoian. So they both went Armdoring's Prime team, and they have basically 4 of the same Pokemon. They both have, so obviously, Armdoring's Prime, Spike Claw, Mega Blossom, Fantastic Friends, which is kind of funny to see. So they opted for Spike Claw as their support mon, just because it's fast with Fake Out Encore as well. You can also be a Tailwind setter if you want some speed control, and then Dire Claw just to play around with statuses, because that move is really broken. This is not champion, so it's the unnerved version of it. With Focus Sash, you're always guaranteed to live a move, and if you really want to, you can Terra Go so you don't get faked out yourself. And then, I guess the little difference is here, Shawdoian is going a Trick Room with Fantastic Friends, which kind of makes sense, I guess, in a way, because it's decent in this matchup, because NottaDoc has Shift Gear on his Armdoring's Prime, right? So, if he really wants his Armdoring's Prime to be faster, he can just Trick Room it. But Shawdoian also ran Mega Steelix. He's the only one who I think ran a double Mega, or at least he's the only one who ran Mega Steelix here. I think from what I remember, Mega Steelix is meant to be the counter for mirror matchups here, right? Because Armdoring's Prime, scary Pokemon, spooky ass Pokemon. But Mega Steelix kind of was it pretty well, especially with Iron Defense. Now body presses aren't really as threatening. And then with your own body press Stomping Tantrum, you are very much threatening a Terra, and even after Terra, body presses will still do a hefty amount of damage. What's interesting about this is Shawdoian is running the Clear Amulet, while NottaDoc is running a Citrus Berry. So this lets him probably get up to Shift Gear a little better, and also if he wanted to avoid stuff like Encore shenanigans, it just means that he can just keep spamming moves, and he has a little bit more survivability with Citrus Berry. While on the other hand, Shawdoian needs to use Shore Up to get the recovery. Of course, NottaDoc still has Shore Up for recovery. But yeah, in this case, you see that Shawdoian has Encore on his Celebi Hell, while NottaDoc has Encore on his Spike Claw, while Shawdoian's Spike Claw doesn't actually have what's it called, the Encore. So this kind of makes it interesting, right? Shawdoian in this matchup, the best way I guess to do it is to cripple the opponent's supports and just Armdoring's Prime, or just trying stuff with Encore, right? Oh, and there's also Mega Blossom with Encore. So I think one of the biggest factors in this matchup is just Encore itself. Of course, I think NottaDoc has a slight advantage here. Just with the I wouldn't say Shift Gear gives it a perfect advantage, but stuff like Fluttermane and Walking Wing actually make this a lot better of a matchup. Well, Fluttermane itself is really good at offenses, and while it doesn't really perfectly deal with Armdoring's Prime, the more important part about it is that it threatens like the supports. Other than Fantastic Friends, of course, everything else kind of gets pretty threatened for pretty solid damage by this thing. But Walking Wake is also a very scary one here with Choice Specs, right? With Hydro Steam, Flamethrower, you're basically stopping Mega Steelix from coming into while you're on Armdoring's Prime. and it's also doing some good damage to all of Shaw's supports, right? This will be Hell, Blossom, and just, I guess, Draco Meteor is still enough good damage on the Fantastic Friends. So in a way, I would say NottaDoc maybe has a slight advantage here, just in this specific mirror matchup. Regardless, Iron Thorns Prime just tends to be more or less so an RNG matchup, but I guess in some cases the better supports, right? How you play around your supports is so important, because you got this Iron Thorns is kind of like this huge, like giga monolith of a Pokemon, right? And it's like most of these teams are basically just support the carry. It's like the better you support the carry, the better chance you have of winning. And in this case, NottaDoc ended up winning 2-0. And that was in the, I guess, the last match of losers bracket. So after that, went on to finals. I don't really want to go over this matchup too much. Obviously, it's another mirror matchup between Iron Thorns Prime. It's between Gerwini and NottaDoc. So in this matchup, let me take a NottaDoc here with his team, with the Walking Wake stuff. I think he had a decent advantage over Gerwini's team with the Celebi Hell, because obviously the difference about Gerwini's Iron Thorns Prime team is just Celebi Hell setup. It's like you had to deal with Celebi Hell, but at the same time not completely lose to Iron Thorns Prime, getting it set up on the other side. It's kind of the matchup really depends on how well you can deal with both threats at the same time. While NottaDoc is, I guess, more just, hey, let's just go out on all-out offense, while Iron Thorns Prime gets it set up here on the other side. However, in the end, Gerwini ended up winning 2-0 to win the entire tournament. So the spooky, scary Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Third Power, Celebi Hell ended up taking it all over the other Iron Thorns Prime team. But of course, Gerwini had to face me at the end, and I won. I was able to overcome that with my Walking Wake on the on my Iron Thorns Prime team. But yeah, I've gone for about half an hour about talking about some of these little matchups and stuff. The next time this will happen, this tournament will happen, I will actually have replays. But I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about the matchups and stuff for this tournament. Sorry about having no replays, but don't worry, next time we'll have replays. So see you next time. Look forward to it, because Gen 3 will be crazy.